And my name is Katina Green. My story will be about surviving in the foster system. For me, it started around 9 years old. My dad was coming home from work. He was robbed, put up resistance, and was shot in the head. 2 years later, my mom got really sick, and she passed away from an illness. And that was at age 11. So me and my brother began to fumble and bumble through the foster system. I have a brother. He's 4 years older than me. And we instantly went into foster care, and it instantly separated us. I fumbled and bumbled from age 11 to 18 through the foster system. I wasn't always treated right. I was often molested or made to feel different or separated from the other kids. My dishes even sometimes were separated from other kids. And I aged out at 18, and I just remember going to court around that time. You lose your caseworker and your housing and your income all in one day. So I left the courthouse feeling lonely, alone. My heart felt like it was in my stomach. They didn't tell me which way to go or anything like that. At that point, I was wrong. I left and I went back to the west side of Chicago because that's where I'm from. That's what felt comfortable to me. So I thought I would start there. So me and my son, we go to the west side of Chicago. 11 days of trying to figure it out and figure out like what my next step was it going to be school, anything. I first had to figure out where I was going to sleep, well, me and my son was going to be safe, how we were going to get back. And one man introduced me to another man at like day 11. It took 11 days of me getting emancipated from DCFS before I ended up in track. One day my son asked me, he said, "Mommy, where you going?" And I looked right down at him and I can remember this so clearly in my head. I told him I was going to a party because I couldn't think of anything else to say, but you're standing in front of him with a wig on and little clothes and heels and stuff like that because I meant to go out to work, but I couldn't tell him that. But also that same day it clicked in my heart that I needed to plan an escape because I would rather die. And I know that's harsh, but I have to tell it because that's how I felt. Then tell this kid what we were going through. It's unbelievable to think that you would tell your child that you're being trafficked or we in it. So besides telling him that, it just clicked in my head that I needed to start planning my escape. So every night that I was forced to go out, I would save money. And that's very dangerous in that world because I had messed up before and they put me in the hospital 3 days. So I knew that I needed to be careful and I knew that what I was doing, I was taking a chance. But I also know I can't go anywhere without no money, and I have a kid on my hip. So I saved enough money, just a few $100, and I ran to the north side of Chicago. Didn't know where I was going, didn't know nobody out there, but I just figured I can run high over there. So I ran into a man, and I hope I meet him one day. I hope he sees this story. He gave me a studio apartment in his property. He owned a big old building, but he had a studio apartment. He let me and my son stay there because I had explained to him what I was going through, and I just needed to kind of hide out for a while. So with Speedway and Walmart, that's how I was able to raise my kids. My son is now 31 years old, and he drives 18-wheelers for Coca-Cola. My daughter is now 20 years old, and she does nurse. She goes to seniors' houses that she takes care of them during the day. My husband 2 years ago decided to up his hours at work so I can down my hours at the gas station and just focus on a non-profit organization that I started. And it's me calling myself Filling the Gap in Foster Care. So my goal is to make sure that these kids have somewhere to go at night, along with resourcing them and giving them, things to do and further in the future. That's my work on that very hard, but it was not always that easy. My son is, like I said, now grown. We're literally only 15 years apart. So this guy, he worked at a dealership. I don't know what the wife did. But she was off at home, but I knew the dad of the house at a dealership. He was the one that would come into my room at night, and he always would wait till I was asleep. And sometimes this what bothers me a little bit. Sometimes the woman of the house would be there. Sometimes the woman of the house would not be there. But it's really hard to accept, even right now today, that a woman of the house is in the household and this is happening. So that made me feel betrayed. Start with something simple like a touch or something, but the second the covers go back, I knew what it was. I remember fingers and him taking my hand to rub him and stuff like that. The other one, just would bring me in and kiss on me and stuff like that. I just remember him sitting down and me standing between his legs when I was little. He big old white dude, and he just kissed me, come here, and hugged me and stuff. And I remember one time he did that in the kitchen and the lady was cooking. But I just tried to make it like a hug, but it still bothers me because it wasn't like I left the house and came back. I was there with you guys all day. So when the second he asked me for a hug, why I didn't make you turn around or be like, or something like that. So I don't know. It's easy to blame somebody, but I don't know exactly what they were thinking or nothing like that. I wanted to be saved. I wanted somebody to notice. So it kind of hurts my feelings. But yeah, I just bringing me in, kissing on me, making me touch them, or hands in my pants, or the Jerry curl guy. I remember him clearly opening my legs when I was in the bed. It was some adults in another room. Kids was in this room. He left that area to come where I was, and I just remember his Jerry curl in that brown collar shirt. You know, she opened my legs while I was sleeping. I went in with good spirits, but I do tend to act out if I feel like I'm being mistreated, and don't nobody really hear kids complaining, so I don't feel like I was being taken serious. So their answer is just move it to another home. So I would get moved and just move to another home, and then it just happened again. And so, like I said, it's these things called casas. They call them casas out here where I live at, where there's a court appointed. It's like a lady that goes to court, and she's the advocate for the child. So if something is going on, this is happening now. I wish this was my case. But like if something's going on in the home, like a molestation or something, and you feel like you can't tell your foster parent, you tell your CASA. And the CASA only shows up when you go to court. She's your voice, and that's your chance and your opportunity to tell your CASA anything that's going on. And she has no dog in the fight. Everything that CASAs do are volunteer work. So they go with kids to court on their court days and stuff like that. So I think that now, and I'm hoping that CASAs help, and these volunteers go to court with these kids, and these kids are able to tell their little secrets, because it's nothing worse than going to court and sitting and have to hold your secret, because ain't nobody going to do nothing. And if you're just going to take me out this home to put me in another one, then a lot of times we just be quiet, because it could go from bad to worse. When you're thinking that you to get yourself out of something, and you tell your caseworker and you go into another home, it can literally go from bad to worse. So sometimes it's best to be quiet. But I did kind of act out when I felt like the man was taking advantage of me, and I didn't want to be. Not because I was bad, I was purposely acting out. And I remember when I got pregnant with my son, I was living in a foster home, and that was a lady that made me eat in the basement, and her husband didn't want, he just walk upstairs. And the last thing she told me, my caseworker picked me up, I'll never forget it. She was like, if you go have an abortion, I'll let you come back. And I just took the screen door and slammed it. Like, you think I want to deal with you and your creepy husband any freaking way? Then you gonna tell me I could come back if I kill my baby? I just remember just slamming the screen door as hard as I could. That was the best she had for me. And I'm like, trust me, I don't want to come back. I would come back here with my baby. And I had my baby. My son is now 30. That's the son she was trying to get me to get rid of. But that boy helped me make better decisions for our life, me and his life. And it gave me some motivation and something to be strong for. I was 15, so I creeped to the doctor on my own, but not knowing it back then. Like, if you go to the doctor, you were the age, they'll call like your parents or foster parents or whatever. So I found out I was pregnant that day at the doctor. But then I went home to my foster parents' house, and that day I'll never forget. It was like Christmas Eve or something. She had us like hanging ornaments on the Christmas tree. And so now at this time it was time for us to go upstairs where we sleep at, but during the day we had to hang in the basement. So I was getting ready to go upstairs to bed, and she was like, come here, Tina. She was like, is this something you want to tell me? And I think, no, I got nothing to say. And she just got tired of like me steady saying, no. She said, so did you go to the doctor today? So I ended up, like, yeah. She's like, yeah, I heard you pregnant. She said, you can't stay here. That'd be a bad influence on the other girl. And that's the lady that told me if I had an abortion, I could come back. So yeah, she found out I was pregnant. She called my caseworker, made my caseworker come keep me. She told me I was a bad influence on the other girls, and she made me leave. And that's what she told me on the way out. Not be safe, be careful, or anything kind. It was just like, if you have an abortion, you can come back. I just took the screen door and slammed it as hard as I can. Like, who wants to come back here, late? So I can clearly remember those last couple of years, because Carlos was born with a premature heart and a club foot. I stood in the doctor, and I had to make decisions that a grown woman should make, but I had to make them at 15. I can remember standing in the hospital having my son, and they told me this is wrong, and this need to be fixed. And I didn't know if I was making the best choices or not, but I remember it was Christ Hospital in Chicago and Oakland. Those women on that maternity ward floor changed my life. They helped me make decisions that I never could have made alone. They were grown, older women, and they was like, look, you're doing the best thing for him. If you do this now, he won't remember. Kids heal faster when they're young, this, that, and the other. Because my son, like I'm sitting like this, and your feet go like this. His feet was born, club footed. So they had to break it, reset it, take the ligaments out, and then put a cast on from the tip of his toe up to his thigh. So that's how my son learned how to take his first steps with a cast on. Not to mention he had a premature heart and lungs. So they had to put a tube down into his neck that fed up through his stomach. So I went through a lot, but it was a lot of decisions I had to make for him as his mom that I feel like I didn't know what I was doing. But those ladies on the maternity ward, like, just let me know. I guess they could see I was alone, I was clever, I didn't know, but they would like guide me. And I actually took their advice, and I'm glad I did, because they knew what they were talking about. Obviously I did. I was scared. And you just telling me that my son's heart is underdeveloped, his lungs, because he was premature. So, but I didn't know all that was going to come with all of that. So I just spent a lot of time, those last couple of years going back and forth to the hospital with Carlos. When they first sent him home, I had to learn how to do CPR legally. Like, they took me in one of the rooms in the hospital and told me I couldn't take my own child home until I learned CPR in case he stopped breathing, because they sent him home on a heart monitor. So I had a diaper bag. The heart monitor was big back then. They so little now, but back then it was a heart monitor, the diaper bag, then his car seat, and he couldn't go nowhere or sleep without the heart monitor. In case his heart stopped, it was to alert me that I knew how to do CPR and call the ambulance. So that was the whole deal. So I just remember always having to take my son back and forth to the doctor, because they had to get his cash changed regularly. They had to get scans on his heart and everything like that. He turned out to be healthy, going into his toddler stage and, young 8, 9, 10. He got better, but when he first came out, he had a lot of health problems. So I spent a lot of time at the hospital. So back then I was working at Wendy's and at McDonald's, and I was going to Orr High School, but all on public transportation. Wasn't nobody really taking me around. I didn't have a car. So trying to leave school and then go to work, go to the hospital, it became a lot on me. So I realized I had to let something go, because I'm trying to do this all every day on public transportation. I decided to let school go, because I needed the money to take care of my son. So it was easier for me to stay at Wendy's and McDonald's and just keep going to the hospital. But just trying to do all of it, no car, young, it just got overwhelming. And that's when school became less important. And plus, I didn't have nobody in my ear say, girl, take school, you better go. It was like, I didn't go. So I'm like, okay, well, I need to spend this time with him. I got traveling time on the bus there and back. You know what I'm saying? They expect me to show up, which I did every day with my baby. But it was stressful. So before I knew it, I had just aged out with him. So he was still a little young when I aged out, but it was when he started turning into that toddler stage, I was already into trafficking. And that's when a little while went by. Now he said, Mommy, where you going? I told Mommy going to a party. And that was the first thing I could think to say, because I did not know what to say. Never expected him to ask me where I was going. But that was my answer. I'm going to a party. So the day I leave the courthouse, I go back to the west side, because that's what feels good to me, familiar, and I feel like I'm safe there. At least in my mind, I thought I was saying, we'll go back out west, because that's where I'm from anyway. But then you try to figure out where you go sleep, where you go eat. And, the first thing we do when we exit the foster system is we go to the first shelter we can find, the first YWCA, or we're going to couch surf, or if somebody gonna open up their heart enough to let us sleep on, that those are our options, okay? So for me, it was just, I started out couch surfing. I did have friends and their moms that would let me spend the night sometimes and stuff like that. But then that became less and less. And then now here it is. I remember hanging with my friends, and their moms would give them curfews because they couldn't be out all day. We was young. So they were like, okay, Tina, go into the house. And I just remember that breaking my heart, because I would watch people go in the house or their parents call them inside. And it's just that little feeling of wanting to go inside too. Because even though outside is nice, even as a young kid, you get tired of being outside just like you get tired of being anywhere else. And it was times where I just physically was outside because I had to be, and not so much that I wanted to be. And it was times that I wish I could just went inside somebody's house. And people don't realize this small gesture was really cool. And I think it altered how I operated with my daughter, because over her teenage years, a lot of her teenage friends ended up in my house because their parents kicked them out because they was pregnant or something was going on in the household. And I did make my house one of those houses where if you a girl, I'm not letting you be out the street. And these are that's from the Chicago area. And that's home base in Chicago, but they do travel. They'll travel to other states just to, they feel like Chicago dry, they'd go somewhere else and might make the girls work and put us up in hotels and stuff. And not good hotels, just enough to sleep, change your clothes, shower if you need to, and go back out to work. So yeah, the introduction was made, and he took me away. That part, the introduction was made as if he wanted to be my boyfriend. So let me tell people that if you learn anything from me, don't fall for this trick. The man was acting as if he was attracted to me girlfriend-wise. And in my mind, I'm noticing he's a little bit slightly older, but handsome. And, I'm in a situation right now, so I thought I'd, give him a try or whatever, not knowing that he knew what his intention was like. Well, his intentions for me was going to be life-changing, something I never expected, but I didn't know that, to come up late. And so after he had me for about 4 days, he took me to a hotel. He opens up the door, and there's 3 other girls. I made number 4. So it was already girls he had, and he just added me to that clique. And he instantly put girls in charge of dressing me, telling me what to do, what not to do. Just like, fix her up, get her ready, and the girls jumped right on it. You got one putting your hair on your head, you got one laying out clothes, because he done told them to get me ready. So this is what it is. And before you know it, and here's the thing. They knew they only want girls that don't have no family looking for them, that don't had. Here's the thing. Just say they try to take you and they try to pick you out, but your mother or your father or your brother or somebody in your life is like raising hell and like always making a scene and calling the police on them. Do you know how fast they will send you back to your family? Because you are a problem. They want the ones like me entering the foster system with no family, nobody looking for me. You could take me for 3 months at a time. They one person asked about me. I'm the best type of people. And we come from the foster system. So I'm the best type of people for in that industry. Not people that come with family and hooping and hollering. Because they get these little white girls and they found out they're attached to their parents looking for them or anything like that, they send them back. They'll drop them off and leave them somewhere quick for their family to come back and get them. They only want the vulnerable ones that's not being. It's easy for a to beat you up, but he knows he's a big old man. He's going to do more damage. What they will do is make the girls fight each other. So it was times I was forced to have to hit other girls and do other things. And it was times the girls were forced to do this to me. But if they feel like the punishment is really need to be harsh, then they'll give it to you. But they're quick to make other girls like jump on you and stuff like that. So I was maybe 2 years in. I think he thought I said too much or did something. But for whatever reason, before I know it, he beat me up this time. He didn't have nobody do it. We was at his house, at his mom's house, but in the basement part. And he did it down there. And he was jumping on me so bad. I believe if it wasn't for his mama coming down there and pulling him off of me, I don't know if I could have made it. Because each one of them blows just started feeling like. So I just remember my nose was busted. And I was just real busted up. And I managed to get out the house. But then on the basement apartment in the bathroom had one of them little square windows with a little screen in it. And I was hollering through there. I said, LaFia. The other girl name was LaFia. She came in the bathroom. I was like, please just give me my keys so I could take myself to the hospital. Because at the time I had a gray bubble Chevy. They call him bubble Chevy. And I wanted to go to the hospital because he had just jumped on me, but I wasn't finna walk. But I was still a little dizzy from what all had just happened. But God just told me I could make it. So she gave me a towel through that little hole, and that's what I put up to my nose, and she slipped me my keys. And that's how I drove myself to West Suburban Hospital. I got there, and I was so badly beaten that they filled that room up with police officers. And I just remember telling one lie after another lie after another lie because I didn't feel safe. And even though all the police was in my room, I did not feel safe. Here's the thing. Unless one of y'all finna take me with y'all, and there's any chance I'm gonna go back out this door with him, for all you know, I'm in a car with Barack Obama. What are you talking about? Because I have to worry about the consequences. Because if I do anything to draw any attention towards him with the police, then it's, what did you say? You know, it's all your fault. That's all I got to say. It's all your fault. So, no, I just made it seem like, you know, I didn't know. I got robbed. I got jumped over. But it was him. He had beat me so bad in his mother's basement. And LaFia gave me my keys in the towel. And I drove myself to the hospital. And they kept me in there for 3 days. 3 days. And let me tell you something else he did that people don't pay attention to. He put someone in my room to make sure that I didn't have visitors or make phone calls. And that person stayed with me the whole 3 days that I was there. Nobody questioned. And so the man who gave me the apartment on the north side of Chicago, because I decided to escape when my son started getting old enough to ask questions, and that started scaring me. And I didn't want to explain to him what I was going through. So I kept going out because I had to. But then I started saving money. And I knew I was putting myself in a position, but what I wanted was stronger. So I always say, God gave me the strength to save that money. And I ran to the north side of Chicago and ran into a man. But thank God that man owned it property. And he gave me and my son like a very small little studio. Like you can sit in the living room, like everything was right there. I didn't care. I had it meant safety, security, fresh start. It just meant so many things for me and my son. And I did. And I hid out in that man's apartment for weeks until, you know, I decided like what's next for me. I want to go back. You know, I went back, started getting my education and applying for good jobs and driving school buses and stuff. I wanted to do stuff. I didn't want to hide out in there forever. I just hid out long enough to where I felt like he would have gave up, maybe looking for me, or I didn't know what the case was. I just felt like I needed to hide out for a couple of weeks just to be safe because they will come back and get you. Ain't nobody looking for you. Don't nobody care. So if you call yourself running, where you gonna go? You ain't got nowhere to go. And then if you go somewhere, there's no place that they won't come back and get you. After I see them pulling right up, checking you, cussing you out, making you get back in the car, and ain't nobody around stopping them to stop them. So I knew that if I ran, I needed to go where I was not going to be found. And that's why I went up north. So yeah, and I just happened to run into somebody that was very kind. It gave me and my son a place to stay for a while. I'm one of them people, I don't like to soak in my sorrows, like keep thinking about stuff because it keeps you in a certain state. I'm one of the people, I want to move forward. Okay, I've been through that. There's nothing I can do. What's next for me? So I'm always thinking ahead, and it was just easier for me not to think in those things. It's only when I talk about them or what's to go back and deal with it is when it like affects me like it did today. But for the most part, it was suppressing. Maybe I should have talked to somebody or went through some kind of counseling or something. And then my son being a focus because I always wanted to be like a good mom to him. So I kept my job and put him in daycare and, going to work and just doing all that motherly stuff. So just being a mom and just suppressing it because my son genuinely did not know what I went through or we talked about it until he was an adult. He had a little glimpse that he told me that he could remember of things that he felt like we was going through. But I just talked to my son about what I was going through about a year ago. So it just blew his mind. I raised my whole daughter without her knowing I was in trafficking. I just didn't feel no reason to tell my kid what do they have to gain from me telling them what I went through. My job is to make sure that they don't go through it. So I really suppressed it. So my daughter just recently found out within a year, and my son. He didn't, and when we talk, he has his glimpse, but he didn't have that full picture. But now when he hears the word mom was in trafficking, it blew his mind. For me, it's find somebody you can trust and get some counseling. As Black people, they tell us to pray. With me as a Black woman, you can ask any Black person. When you tell them that we want to talk to somebody or we feel like we need a therapist or a counselor or something, or we'll consider it weak. And you're supposed to pray about it and move on. I'm trying to break that stereotype with people to let you know it is totally okay to talk to somebody, a counselor, a therapist, or anything like that. It actually helps. So you don't just have to pray. You can actually talk to somebody and it helps. So yeah, just breaking that stereotype of them making us feel like we can't talk to people.